Hey everyone, it's Lauren. I'm back for Taiki Talk. Hello. So, for those of you who are new, Taiki Talks are LinkedIn Lives that I do where I talk to experts about various topics. And I always get excited about it because I've talked to the people before and they're on Taiki Talks because I enjoy talking to them and I've learned from our conversations. So, I want to spread the wealth to you guys. I'm Lauren Young Durbin, a career design coach. And today we have Amanda Burton. And the topic today is how to accept yourself as a leader and how to become a better leader. So let me tell you a little bit about Amanda. She is a transformational leadership coach who works with heart-centered and self-driven individuals to help them rediscover their dreams, commit to their goals, and boldly take action towards those goals. Her mission is to develop holistic leaders of the future to lead from the inside out and serve humanity with passion, purpose, and profit. I love a good alliteration. She's the creator of the Align to Lead Mastermind and Coaching Program, which incorporates her leadership experience and training along with core principles of her yoga, meditation, and sound healing practice and certification. In her leisure time, you can find her in the woods with her dog, on her boat in the summer, or downhill skiing in the winter. So join me and welcome Amanda. Yay, it's a round of applause in case. Anyway, I
Awesome.
always do that. I'm the only one.
I'll do it too. I'll give you a round of
Yeah.
applause. It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me into this conversation with you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, one of the things that I love talking about leadership, particularly I work with mostly women. So leadership for, by, and amongst women is such a big, powerful thing that I love talking about. So why don't we just jump right into it? So why don't you talk about or tell me some of the common roadblocks you find what people face when they're thinking about themselves as a leader, or I'm not a leader. I was one of those people. So
Yeah, no, I love talking about leadership too, especially when we're talking about that road, that journey to leadership, right? So common roadblocks. Well, I think the way I could name several things, and I'm going to speak to, I think, something from my experience, right, that speaks to some of the roadblocks, because I have certainly experienced so many roadblocks on my journey to
yes,
leadership, right? And I'll just call out, a few being like self-doubt, right? I think as, anybody will struggle with some self-doubt, imposter syndrome, right? And I think women sometimes face it even more so. Lack of support sometimes, as well as perfectionism, which was a big gotcha for me, a big roadblock for me, right? And a lot of this is just based on kind of that inaccurate data or education or expectations about what leadership even is, right? So we're taught
yes,
and believe that it requires a title. That's a lot of times what we're led to believe, right?
yeah,
And that to get to that title requires what might feel like, especially at the beginning of your career, an insurmountable climb up a corporate ladder to achieve that title. And
Mhm.
that's what I thought, as I started my career, and from what I was told from my managers or HR departments or the companies that I was part of. And it came to a point in my career where I wanted a promotion. I felt like I was doing the work that I needed to do to deserve a promotion, on top of the fact that I wanted the more responsibility and to become a leader. So I felt I needed a promotion and a new title. So I was handed kind of that leveling chart and that, what you get from HR, your manager, maybe with all of the qualifications for each one of the titles, right? And I was told, if you want to move up, you have to meet every single one of these. So being the perfectionist that I am, I took that piece of paper or that spreadsheet, right, with all of this on it, and I meticulously monitored and tracked and documented how I was meeting each one of those requirements, right?
Wow, that's
Took it
serious.
back to my manager at the time and I said, I have met and exceeded each one of these requirements that is for the title above me. And so, you know, I think I'm ready for a promotion now. So she said, okay. And come, you know, a few weeks later, and I'm at the company meeting, and they're going to be announcing some promotions. And my heart sank as the promotions were announced, and I wasn't on that list. In fact, a coworker was promoted that I often was helping and filling the gaps for, and they were promoted and I wasn't. My heart dropped. I still feel that
Yeah, I can
that
tell.
feeling when that occurred, right? And so I did get up the courage to go and ask my manager at the time, what happened? Why did I not get promoted? And the response was, oh, I missed the deadline to put you in for the promotion. I've been having some health issues and I've missed the deadline. So it was at that point, right? Of course, I went through a whole thing of grief and crying and all this kind of thing.
Right.
It was at that point, after some soul searching, that I realized I didn't need a title to be a leader. I needed to look inside and decide who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and just start doing it. And be a leader whether I had a title or not. So I just started finding the leadership opportunities, whether it was leading a specific project, whether it was wherever I could be influencing and impacting in a positive way and bring results. And just was enjoying leading without a title. And probably about, I don't know, 9 months or so later, a new COO came into the company, and we started working together, and he ended up asking me to come work with him for him. And I catapulted over 2 different roles on titles,
Wow.
levels on the list, and really was able then to I was demonstrating being a leader. Now I had the title to go along with it and was continuing to move. So that's kind of my story of overcoming some of those roadblocks as a leader, or on that journey to becoming a leader, and just stepping into being a leader even without the title.
Well, okay, so now I have to ask. So when you jump 2 levels, when you got that new position, were you hitting all of the qualifications they said you have to?
At that point, I don't even know. We weren't even looking at that anymore. I must have been
Oh,
in some way, shape, or form, right? But I wasn't even tracking it anymore at that point. I think I had sort of discounted that sheet of needing to do those things. And yes, I was doing them, right? But I don't know if I went through with my perfectionist way of tracking them, whether that actually was, but he gave me the
never gonna have
permission
closure.
nonetheless.
Never gonna closure on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what advice do you give people who find themselves in the position like you were, when they feel like they're called to lead and that they are a leader, but they don't have a formal position or that formal power?
Yeah.
What should you do if you're in that
Yeah.
situation?
Well, I think, this is sort of you might call this a cop-out, but it's from my experience too, right? Of you don't need a title to be a leader, right? Yes, there are situations where, being recognized for what you're doing does usually go, that title kind of gives you that recognition. I've also had periods in my career too, where without that title, you don't get that seat at the table sometimes, right? And so it's kind of this balance, right? Of yes, a title is needed, especially given some of the responsibilities one will have, because that kind of gives gives you some of that authority that's needed to get some of those things done. But ultimately, a leader it's not a title. If you're so really it's I think the first requirement to being a leader is deciding what kind of leader you want to be and start being it.
Mhm.
Which obviously you can't start, managing people necessarily just because you've decided you want to manage people directly. But you can interact with people in your company or on your team or in your projects or even just out on the street, right?
Yeah.
As a leader, as someone who has influence and impact within your community and in your circles and in the world. I am a firm believer in, you have to, of be, do, and have, right? So who do
Yes.
we often think we need to have something in order to do something and then become something. Become it, then you will be able to do it and you will have the title as well. And that's really from my experience and what I help a lot of my clients with too, who say they want a promotion, they want more leadership, right? Step into being that leader, and you'll be amazed what happens.
And the other thing too is that leadership skills are transferable. So let's say for whatever reason you aren't able to take on a leadership role within your job, for whatever reason, your boss hates you, I don't know. But outside there in the world, in the community, there's so many opportunities to lead something that exists or to start something yourself.
Yeah,
And when you update your resume, you can put that leadership experience
yeah.
on there. You can show how you can lead, and you weren't paid for it. You did it voluntarily,
Mhm.
or I mean, maybe you were paid for it. I don't know,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have to be in your job. It's there's so many ways and so many opportunities to lead that don't think just because you can't do it in your job that you can't do it, or there's oh, I just don't want to do it because that's not a leadership mindset.
yeah, exactly. You hit the nail on the head for sure.
But if you're
Yeah,
just filling your cup with can't, then all right, then I don't know if I'd want to lead you because you're just gonna be telling me all the things I can't do.
yeah, right.
And I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think, and then, sometimes it's even harder to lead, when so I think of the difference between manager and a leader, right? When you're a manager, people kind of, because of a structure, because of a hierarchy, they're obligated, we'll say in a way, to follow you. Um, but when you are a leader, they want to follow you. So sometimes even in those other scenarios outside of your work, whether it be especially volunteer work or things like that, it's even harder, I think, to be a leader. And so proving yourself in that arena, um, makes you all the stronger as a leader, I believe. So,
Yes, yes, and you're motivated by something other than compensation. So
yes,
you're probably more likely to put more work into it because that's where your heart is.
yeah,
So,
yes, yeah.
so what are some ways that people can flex that leadership muscle? Like, how can they develop their
Mhm.
leadership skills?
Yeah. And we've mentioned a few, right? Like going and looking for leadership opportunities in all areas, even in your parenting, right? I mean, that's not necessarily something you put on your resume per se. However, those skills even are transferable. And I think personal development is a cornerstone. I think I mentioned at the beginning, right? Personal
Right.
development, self-awareness, are key, in being a successful leader, being a good leader in my mind, right?
Mhm.
So taking that time and and investing the time and maybe some of your resources, right, on whether it is a program or a course that's specific to leadership, maybe it's just something around self-awareness, whether it's a strengths, one of the tools for figuring out our strengths, or what type of personality we are. All of those things give us more insight into who we are and how we interact with others and learn about others so that we can be better leaders. So if I have anybody who's coming to me, for a job interview or things like that, and I see that they're doing those things on their resume or they can talk about them, to me, that makes them all the more a stronger candidate, right?
Right.
Um, the other piece too is, so I learned when I was in college, I had a professor, he was actually my advisor. I was a theoretical math student or graduate major in my undergrad, and my mentor, my advisor, was very adamant that you don't really know something unless you can teach it, unless you can develop others. And
Mm.
so he actually would have us going into elementary schools and high schools to teach high-level math concepts, in an approachable and understandable way to these students, because that would help us really understand math. Even though I'm studying theoretical math, which really is not at the elementary school level, I was in a third grade and a fifth grade teaching some of these methods. And so that really did teach me about, okay, to really know something, you
Mhm.
teach it. And I do believe that that a top tier leader is someone who develops leaders. And but that you don't have to be a top level leader to be developing other individuals, whether it's even just in a meeting and leading a meeting well, or helping others lead a meeting well, right? So those types of activities as well. So personal development, and then, as you progress, helping others develop as leaders as well, I think are very awesome ways to continuously develop yourself as a leader.
Right. And you can just ask your friends and coworkers that are willing to tell you the truth. Like, hey, what do you think I'm good at?
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
may not tell you what things you can improve on, but they'll tell you what you're good at.
Yeah.
And also believe people when they tell you they're leaders. People for years were telling me, "Hey, you're a leader." Blah blah blah. No, I'm not. I just see things that need to be done, and I get them done.
Mhm.
And I convince other people to help me.
Yeah.
But once I accepted that, I'm like, oh wait, well, I guess I am a leader. It's part of that self-awareness piece you were talking about.
Yeah.
Um, it forced me, I'm like, okay, well, is this something I want to do? If the answer is yes, then what works and what hasn't worked?
Mm.
And again, that's all part of the self-awareness.
Yeah.
And it came from listening to people and not just staying in my self-defined version of myself. It's like, no, 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 I'm not a leader. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome point, and for sure, right. Listen
Yeah.
and accept those uh those comments and the feedback, right? And the testimonials about how you do lead well, and we tend to kind of belittle that, and we should allow ourselves to accept that and see it. Yeah.
So that goes into the last question I have is,
Mhm.
how do you overcome that imposter syndrome or that self-doubt that you actually brought it up in the first answer, but how can you actively work to overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, so as to continue that story that I told at the beginning, so the role that I stepped into with the COO that I came with, he asked me to be his chief of staff. I had no idea what a chief of staff was. This was long enough ago that chief of staff was not, especially on the East Coast, not something we understood, except for if you were working closely with the president or other politician.
Right.
And so I had no idea what it was. And as I sat in on a lot more of the executive meetings, was actually responsible for leading some of these executive meetings. Like I was, ooh, baby, I don't know if I'm actually qualified for this. I'd be careful what you wish for. I wanted a promotion and now here I am, right? And so in that situation, I had some conversations with my new manager and my new boss about this, without letting on too much how much doubt I had. And he suggested to me at the beginning, he said, you are learning how to step into your power, into your ability to influence and impact at a new level. And he said, you are allowed at the beginning to borrow my authority at first. And what he meant by that was, in a very kind way, to kind of come to conversations or when I needed to approach the CEO or some other company's CEO or something like that, to mention that I'm working closely with him, with my boss, or so you can kind of borrow a little bit of that power. So I felt like, okay, I have a little boost in my confidence because I know he has the authority and power. So I'll just use it a little bit as my own for the moment, right? But you can't stay in that state, right? But what I found was, as I did that more and more, and I grew into that confidence, right, that I was able to impact and influence as well. And people started to see me. And not me as me, right? And not necessarily needing him for some of that power. And part of also how I did that was really spending some time to really understand, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where do I maybe need to, and I focused more on my strengths than on the weaknesses, because you can always kind of delegate some of those things that are more in your weakness zone, right? And focus on my strengths and continue to get better and better and better at those strengths. So that, I became more confident. I overcame that doubt, that imposter syndrome. Although when I use the word overcame, I also want to clarify that I also think that the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome never really go away. And the reason is because I'm always learning and developing as a leader. So I'm always stepping into new experiences, new challenges. So always, playing that balance and finding myself in these new areas where I again need to build my confidence, build my strengths, learn how to interact and address different situations. So yeah, so I think that's sort of the process that I went through. I hope that helps.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great, as always, speaking with you and learning some new tricks of the trade and just things we can work on within ourselves, both in our job, careers, and out in the world. Because what did Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, something like a services universal.
Awesome.
So where can people find you? Do you have anything like you want to let us know about?
Sure. Yes, I would love to. So I think because everybody's already on LinkedIn, it's the easiest just to connect with me on LinkedIn. Amanda P. Burton is my, my username or whatever they call my handle. And you're welcome to DM me, just connect with me there with my profile. And I'm always, I do look at the messages and very, very often. So I'll always reply there and we can connect further. As you mentioned at the beginning, I do run a mastermind and have coaching programs. Aligned to Lead is the coaching, the mastermind and coaching programs. Would love to have people reach out and I can tell them more about that and get them involved. It's a wonderful community of leaders and aspiring leaders. And I love to be able to share experiences and get that support and accountability with a great community of leaders. So those are ways right now you can definitely reach out. And it's probably the easiest since we're on LinkedIn right now. So Amanda
Sorry,
P.
on LinkedIn. So yes, Amanda P. Burton, all one word. So
Yes.
or
Yeah.
I guess
All one word.
all all one thing. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. And next week, the 20th, so it's next Tuesday, at 3 o'clock, same time, same bat time, same bat place. We're going to be talking about authentic learning goals with Vicki Crockett. So, all right, guys, I'll see you later.
Thank you so much. Take care.